Okay, so as we're introducing this new chapter, this is where we need to know what the difference is between functions and not a function. So a function is a relationship between two values where in order to be a function, x does not repeat, okay? No duplicate domains, but x does not repeat. And we'll talk about what domains means starting later. If x does repeat, if you see any of the x values do repeat, then it's not a function. And we'll talk about that. Well, so let's go over it. So just keep this in mind. If x values repeat, it's not a function. And when I'm referring to x, I am talking about a coordinate, okay? A coordinate has values x and y, x being the left side number. So when I'm asking you, do any of them repeat, I mean, are any of the left numbers repeating? So I'm going to grab a highlighter. Highlighting makes it much more simpler to figure out what I'm looking at. So we are given a set of coordinates right here, or ordered pairs as commonly known. And we are trying to decide, is it a function or not? When we are trying to decide if it's a function or not, we are going to look at the x values and the x values only. I do not care about the y values. So if I look at the x values, that's the first number, 5, 3, 2, 0, -1. Ask yourself this question. Do any of them repeat? Are any of them exactly the same? And they are all different. So since that does not repeat, it is a function. Okay, so let's keep going. Again, I'm given a list of coordinates. I'm going to look at the x values only. So that's -2, 0, 2, 3, 2. If you heard me say it, I did repeat a number. If you look at these, I did repeat 2 and 2. Okay, -2 is not the same thing. -2 and 2 are two different things, but I did have two values of 2. They repeated. And since they repeated, it is not a function. Okay, number 3. Same idea. We're going to look at the x values only. So -4, -3, -2, -1, -3. And if you heard me say it, folks, I did say -3 twice. Since -3 is repeating, it is not a function. Pardon my handwriting. One last one on given ordered pairs. I look at the x values. I look to see if any of them repeat. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. None of them repeat, so it is a function. Okay. Notice I didn't care about the y values, so we only look at the x values. I don't even have to look at the y's. When it comes to tables, it is exactly the same thing. And what's so beautiful about tables is that my x values are on the left. So I'm looking at just the left side values. And we're looking for the same thing. Do any of them repeat? So in number 5, I have 2, -1, 0, 1, 2. And if you saw it, I do see repeating values. I see 2 2s. Now -1 and 1 are not the same thing, so leave them alone. Those are separate. But since the 2's repeated, it is not a function. If I look at number 6, I have -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. At first glance, it looks like there are 2 2's and 2 1's, but -2 and +2 are two different things, so they are not repeating. None of these repeat, so it is a function. Number 7, I have -3, -1, 0, -1, -2. If you saw it, I do have 2 -1's, and since they are repeating, it is not a function. Okay, so again, we see some ordered pairs. That's the same thing as what's up here, so we're just going to keep practicing. I only care about the x values. So when I look at the x values, that's the first number in the ordered pair. So -3, -3, -3, -3. And if you notice, they are repeating because that's 4 of the same value. So since it is repeating, it is not a function. Number 9, I look at the x values again. So that's -1, 0, 1, and 2. -1 and +1 are not the same thing, so they are not repeating. There are no values that do repeat, so this is a function. Okay, this is where people start getting a little confused because they see the y's. If you look at -5/2, -5/2, they are, but we don't care about the y's. We only care about the x values, so keep that in mind. Number 10, I have -4, -2, -2, and 0. If I look carefully, the only ones that they do repeat are the -2's. Since they do repeat, it is not a function. Okay, so this will be the first time that you ever see pictures like this, diagrams. These are referred to as mappings. And we think of mappings as the same thing as ordered pairs or a table, all right? So on a mapping, it's just another way to write coordinates, but always keep in mind, it's the same thing as x and y. So x is your left side of the mapping and y is the right side. So how I figure out, so I'm looking to see if any of these numbers repeat. But what I'm looking at specifically is I'm looking at the lines that are coming out of the left side. So I only care about the left side of my mapping, okay? And I always ask my kids, how many lines do you see coming out of each number? So let me ask you, how many lines coming out of -1? 1. How many lines coming out of 1? 1. How many lines coming out of 2? 1. How many lines coming out of 0? 1. What that tells me is that each of these numbers are only showing up once. And 1 time is the magic number because that means none of them are repeating. So this one is a function, and I'm going to put in capital F. If I look at number 12, I only care about the left side, but look at it. How many lines do you see coming out of -3? 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. What that means to me is -3 is showing up 4 times. -3, -3, -3, -3. And since that's the case, that means it is repeating, which means it is not a function. If I look on the left side of this mapping, how many lines coming out of -5? 1. How many lines coming out of -3? 1. How many out of 0? 1. Out of 3? 1. Since they're only coming out once, that means they're only showing up in my list 1 time. They're not repeating, so this one is a function. Number 14, same idea, it's just with rectangles, I guess you can call them. How many lines out of -3? 1. Out of -2? 1. 1, 1, 5, 1. And since I said once the entire time, they only showed up 1 time, it is a function because they do not repeat. Last one on the mappings. How many lines coming out of -1? 2. How many lines coming out of 0? 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. But this one right here, 2 lines came out of -1. That means it's going to repeat, -1, -1. And since it does repeat, it is not a function. Okay, last but not least is being able to tell if a function is a function or not on a graph. So I'm going to explain this 2 ways, especially with these, but the idea is if I'm trying to decide if a graph is a function or not, we use something that's called a vertical line test. Now, if you know which direction a vertical line goes, that means up and down, okay? And here's how this test works. If I draw a vertical line anywhere on my graph, you're asking yourself, how many times does it touch, okay? So when it comes to just a plot of points, if I draw a line, a vertical line, not just any line, but a vertical line here, how many dots does it touch? 1. If I draw a vertical line here, how many dots does it touch? 2. If I draw a line here, 1. But since it touched these two dots at the same time on the same line, that's another example of repeating. Okay, if it touches more than once, then it's not a function. If I look at number 17, if I draw a line here, it touches 1 dot. If I draw a vertical line here, 1 dot. If I draw a vertical line here, 1 dot. If I draw a vertical line here, 1 dot. So everywhere I drew a vertical line, it only touched 1 time. So that means it is a function. If I look at number 18, if I draw a vertical line here, 1 dot. If I draw a vertical line here, 1 dot, here, 1 dot, here, 1 dot. Since every time I drew a vertical line, it only touched 1 time, that is a function. So that's when it comes to dots. If I look at number 19, okay, I'm focusing on this line right here. And if I draw a vertical line, wherever I draw a vertical line, I'm checking to see if it touches 1 time or more than 1 time. So if I draw a vertical line here, 1 time, right? It only touches that yellow line 1 time. If I scoot it over a little and I draw it here, 1 time. But look what happens when I draw it right here. If I draw a vertical line in this position, it touches that yellow line twice. And since it touches twice, it's not a function. It may have been a function over here, but the second that I draw a line and it touches more than once, it's not a function, even if it's in a different spot. Number 20, so my focus is this line right here. If I draw a vertical line, that means a line straight down, that one touches once. If I draw it right here, 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 once. So no matter where I put it, my vertical line, it only touches 1 time. It is a function. If I look at 21, okay, my focus is on this little squiggle. Okay, if I draw a vertical line here, 1 time, here, 1 time, here, 1 time, here, 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 it only touches 1 time. So no matter where I put my vertical line, it only touches 1 time, so it is a function.